My dad texted at 3 a.m., "Don't trust mom." 9 minutes later, we were fleeing through the night, and it was about to get worse. The phone screen burnt my eyes in the dark. 3 sentences that made no sense at first, but then made complete sense. My father had been on a 5-day business trip in Seattle, which he did once a month for his consulting firm. Always professional and predictable. He never texted beyond 10 p.m., never used urgent language, and never mentioned anything to concern us. This telegram contradicted all I knew about my meticulous, measured father, indicating that something had gone horribly wrong. I was 18 and responsible enough to see when people were exaggerating and when they were truly afraid. This text read like actual horror, compacted into 14 words. I pulled off my covers and grabbed clothing off the floor, putting on pants and a sweater while my mind struggled to figure out what "don't trust your mother" could possibly mean. Carol was downstairs in the living room where I'd left her an hour earlier, watching a crime documentary and sipping wine, as she did most nights, typical suburban mother behavior. There was nothing menacing or strange about this communication, but Brian would not send it without a purpose. And the specifics of snatching my sister and fleeing implied imminent danger, not psychotic delusions. I stuffed my feet into shoes and grabbed my backpack, dumping out the textbooks and replacing them with my laptop, phone charger, and the emergency cash I kept concealed in my desk drawer for reasons I'd never entirely explained. In my 20s, $350 suddenly seemed like the most valuable item I owned. My 14-year-old sister Emma slept soundly, unaffected by my frenzied movements in the adjacent room. I snuck down the hall and gently opened her door, cringing as the hinges squeaked. She lay covered in covers, only her dark hair visible, breathing in a steady beat of profound slumber. Waking her silently would be practically difficult, but waking her loudly would alert Carol below, and Brian's letter had made it clear that he did not trust her. I knelt alongside Emma's bed, putting my hand over her lips and shaking her shoulder. Her eyes widened in horror, and I felt her try to scream against my hand. I placed my finger to my lips and murmured into her ear, barely audible, even in the quiet room. Brian transmitted an emergency message. "We need to go right now, without Carol knowing. I will explain everything once we are secure. But you have to believe me, and remain fully silent." Emma's eyes were wide with dread and bewilderment. But she nodded against my hand. I withdrew her mouth, and she sat up, grabbing for her glasses. On the nightstand. I'd already taken clothing from her wardrobe, pants and a hoodie, and shoved them into her hands, gesticulating furiously for her to change. She put on the garments over her pajamas, her hands trembling, and I pushed her feet into the nearest shoes without bothering to tie the laces correctly. Emma's room window faced the backyard, and I had removed the screen dozens of times to slip out to meet friends. I popped it loose with familiar ease and glanced down at the 10-foot plunge into the garden below. Not ideal, but workable, especially because the flower bed offers a softer landing than pavement. I threw both of our bags out first, letting them drop in the mulch, and then helped Emma crawl through the window frame. She paused near the edge, peering down at the plunge with apparent anxiety. I grabbed her wrists and dropped her as far as I could before letting go, and she dropped the final 4 feet with a muffled thud that seemed explosively loud in the silent night. I followed right behind, diving and rolling to absorb the force. My ankle twisted slightly while landing, but it held my weight when I stood. Emma was gazing at me with questions on her face, but I took her hand and guided her to the back fence. We just had a few minutes before Carol checked on us or heard anything odd. The fence was 7 feet of privacy wood, which I scaled by stepping on the ornate crossbeam, lifting myself over the top, and descending into my neighbor's yard. Emma struggled harder with the height, but I helped her get through it, catching her when she fell beside me. We rushed through 3 backyards before arriving on a street 3 blocks from our home. We're both breathing hard. Only then did I take out my phone and reread Brian's message, seeking for things I had overlooked in my stress. The timestamp read 3:05 a.m., which was sent 9 minutes ago. There were no follow-up texts or missed calls. Only those 3 phrases hung in digital space like a bomb. I tried contacting him, but it went directly to voicemail. His professional departing message clashed with the emergency he announced. Emma was pulling on my sleeve, demanding explanations that I didn't have, her voice rising to panic. I showed her the text and saw her face become pale, even in the faint streetlights. "What does he mean, don't trust Carol? What's happening?" "I don't know yet, but Brian wouldn't say this unless it was serious. We need to get somewhere safe and figure out what's going on." I was attempting to seem cool and in charge while having no strategy other than to leave our residence. We were standing on a quiet street at 3 a.m., with nowhere to go and no way to contact the single parent who had told us to go. My phone vibrated with a fresh text. This one from Carol. "Where are you girls? I heard noises upstairs. Her nonchalant tone sounded inappropriate considering the situation, as if she was pretending nothing weird was going on. Perhaps nothing odd was happening from her perspective. Perhaps Brian's letter was an anomaly, and Carol was truly perplexed about her missing daughters. But I kept thinking about those 14 words, the precision of the warning, and the fact that Brian's phone was turned off. Carol sent another text before I could determine how to react. "This isn't funny. Come downstairs right now or I'll call the cops." The threat was bizarre, since what would she tell the cops? Her adolescent children had left the house at night. We were not missing or abducted. We'd departed freely after our father's admonition. Unless Carol had a motive to seek police participation or was attempting to push us back under official authority. Emma was silently weeping, the fearful tears that come with being 14 and having your usual life collapse at 3 a.m. I wrapped my arm over her shoulders and continued walking, bringing us closer to the 24-hour convenience shop 3 blocks ahead. At the very least, there would be lights and possible witnesses, providing some kind of safety while I sorted out the next moves. Carol's texts continued coming in, ranging in tone from perplexed to angry to threatening. The convenience shop was practically empty, save for a bored cashier browsing on his phone behind bulletproof glass. Emma and I gathered in the back corner among the chilled beverages, attempting to appear casual despite being 2 adolescent females alone at 3 a.m. I phoned Brian again and got the same result. Voicemail. His phone was obviously turned off. I tried texting instead, asking for additional information and stating that we had gotten out but wanted to know what was going on. My phone rang, and Carol's name came up on the screen. I waited at it for 3 rings before answering, putting it on speaker so Emma could hear Carol's voice, which was tense and barely controlled. "Where are you? What's going on? I wake up and both of my daughters are gone. Windows are open. You're not answering texts. You're scaring me, honey." She sounded genuinely scared and puzzled. There was nothing in her tone that suggested danger or menace, yet Brian's message echoed in my head, the urgency and specificity that had gotten us going. "Brian texted us," I added cautiously, examining Emma's expression for reaction. "He said to leave the house and not trust you. We need to know why he said that." The quiet on the other end lasted so long that I assumed the line had dropped. Carol laughed. The brittle sound lifted every hair on my neck. "Your father texted you at 3 o'clock in the morning telling you to run away from me? That's insane. He's in Seattle at a conference, probably drunk at some hotel bar. He doesn't know what he's saying, but I'd never seen Brian drunk in my life. He barely drank even at parties, and the message hadn't read drunk, it had read terrified. Why would he specifically say not to trust you? What is he afraid you'll do?" Carol's breathing quickened over the phone. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted to something harsher. "Listen to me very carefully. Your father is having some kind of mental break. He's been acting paranoid for weeks, saying strange things, accusing me of things that aren't true. I didn't want to worry you girls, but he's been seeing a therapist for delusions. Whatever he told you is part of that. You need to come home right now so we can handle this as a family." The explanation seemed plausible, except for the time. If Brian had been deluded for weeks, why would he send the emergency SMS now? Why did he switch off his phone after sending it if he was simply intoxicated and confused? And why did Carol's voice seem off, as if she were acting concerned rather than experiencing it? Emma's face matched my own hesitation. "I want to talk to Brian first," I told him. "I want to hear from him that he's fine and that the message was a mistake, and then we'll go home." Carol made a frustrated sound, and I heard movement on her end, footsteps, and the jingle of vehicle keys. "Fine. Stay where you are, and I'll come get you. We'll call Brian together from the car and sort this out. Where are you exactly?" Every instinct I had told me not to tell her, not to reveal our location until I knew what was going on. "We're at a friend's house. We'll come home once we've spoken with Brian." I hung up before she could answer and turned off my phone. I'm now concerned about location monitoring. Emma did the same without being asked. We are both working on the same frequency of mistrust. The convenience shop clerk was now observing us with suspicion, perhaps thinking if he should call the cops on 2 adolescent females acting strangely in his business. At 3 a.m., I took 2 bottles of water and paid in cash, attempting to appear normal and unhurried. We needed to go, but I had no clue where. Brian's message said to run but did not provide a destination. Beyond the initial warning, they had not provided us with a safe place or contact information. Emma grabbed my arm as we exited the store, pointing back to where we had come from. Our automobile moved slowly along the street, headlights off, moving as if looking for something. Even from 3 streets away, I recognized Carol's silver SUV, which she used to go to her real estate business and soccer practice. She was looking for us and had predicted or tracked that we'd be in this location. We huddled behind a parked vehicle and watched the SUV drive by. Carol's profile is visible through the driver's window. Her phone screen lighted her face, and the emotion I saw there was not that of a frightened mother, but of cold calculating. She rounded the corner, and we went the other way, remaining low behind parked cars until we reached the next big crossroads. A bus stop shelter gave temporary protection, and I attempted to rationally consider our alternatives. Brian was inaccessible. Carol was aggressively looking for us, and we had nowhere to go save the houses of acquaintances, whose parents would instantly contact our mother. We needed an adult who would listen to the entire scenario before passing judgment. Someone with authority but no prior devotion to Carol. My phone turned back on and soon began vibrating with texts. The most were from Carol, with an increasingly agitated tone, but one came from an unknown number. "This is Special Agent Megan Johnson from the FBI, and your father requested me to notify you if anything happened to him. Call this number immediately from a secure line. Do not go home. Do not trust local police." The message was so unexpected, so out of the ordinary, that I had to read it 3 times before my brain absorbed it. FBI participation implied crimes much beyond family turmoil. It implied Brian's warning was about more than just mental health issues or marital troubles. Emma read over my shoulder, and her face turned even paler. Why would Brian be talking to the FBI? What did Carol do? She was asking the things I was thinking but couldn't articulate. I dialed the number in the message using the convenience store's payphone, nervous about phone monitoring. A woman responded on the second ring, her voice professional and attentive despite the time. "This is Agent Johnson. Who am I speaking with?" "This is Sarah Brennan. You sent a message about my father, Kevin Brennan. He texted us tonight telling us to leave our house and not trust our mother. We need to know what's happening." Agent Johnson remained quiet for a bit, and I heard a keyboard clicking in the background, as if she was retrieving files or confirming data. "Your father has been cooperating with a federal investigation into financial crimes for the past 4 months. He discovered evidence that your mother is involved in a sophisticated fraud scheme that moves money through her real estate business. We've been building a case, but tonight our surveillance team lost contact with your father. His final communication was sending you that text message before his phone turned off." The comments struck like physical blows, and I gripped the payphone cradle to keep myself steady. Carol was not only experiencing marital issues or acting strangely. She was a felon under federal investigation. Brian had been covertly working with the FBI to obtain information against his own wife, and something went wrong tonight, prompting his emergency warning. "Where is he now? Is he safe?" Agent Johnson hesitated before responding. "We don't know. He was supposed to check in 4 hours ago from his hotel in Seattle and didn't. His phone location last pinged at the hotel, then went offline. We have agents checking the hotel now, but his failure to communicate combined with that text to you suggests he believed himself to be in immediate danger." Emma was grasping my sleeve so tightly that her fingers hurt, listening to my side of the conversation with increasing fear. What kind of danger? Why would Carol hurt him? But even as I questioned, I was recalling things that seemed normal at the time but took on deadly significance in this new setting. Carol's frequent, unexplained absences. Her guarded response when Brian inquired about her company finances. She started password protecting everything on her phone and computer. Dead. The people your mother is working with are not the type to leave witnesses if they believe their operation is jeopardized. If they discovered your father was cooperating with our investigation, he would become a liability to eliminate. And if they've gotten to him, you and your sister are prospective witnesses who know his habits and might identify accomplices. That's why his message ordered you to go. The whole weight of danger fell on me, and I now saw why Brian had been so detailed and urgent in his middle-of-the-night text. We were not fleeing from regular family turmoil. We were fleeing from people who had murdered witnesses to financial crimes. What do we do? Where do we go? Agent Johnson provided me the address of an FBI field office 50 meters north. Get there as soon as possible without using credit cards or phones, save for emergency calls. If you see your mother or anybody suspect, contact 911 right away. I've dispatched operatives to pick you up, but they'll take 50 minutes. You must remain concealed and move until they come. I hung up and told Emma everything, seeing her expression shift between incredulity, terror, and grim acceptance. At 14, she was absorbing the fact that our mother was a criminal. Our father was gone and maybe dead, and we were fleeing from individuals who had murdered witnesses. It was too much for anyone, but especially for a child who had gone to bed stressed over homework and friend conflict. A taxi firm operated from the strip mall across the street, so we moved fast, keeping an eye out for Carol's silver SUV. The dispatcher was half drowsy, but she agreed to send a car to our area when we specified a destination. I offered him an address that was 3 blocks from the FBI field office. Even seemingly innocent cab firms make me nervous when I give them particular locations. The cab came 20 minutes later, a beat-up car driven by a man who appeared irritated at being roused for a trip out. Emma and I hopped into the back seat and I handed him cash up front, instructing him to drive cautiously and avoid major routes. He gave me an odd look before pocketing the money and pulling out of the lot. We'd been driving for about 4 miles when we noticed headlights approaching quickly behind us. The cab driver observed, cursed, and accelerated slightly. Someone has been following us since we left. Probably drunk idiots playing games. But I spun around to look and recognized Carol's SUV, which was near enough for me to see her face through the window, set and determined. "That's our mother," I said to the driver. "She's dangerous. We need to lose her right now." He looked at me as if I was nuts until Carol's SUV hit us from behind, flinging Emma and me forward into the front seats. The driver swore again and floored it. Carol smacked us again, and the ancient cab replied sluggishly. We were on a semi-rural road with very little traffic. Exactly the worst location for a pursuit sequence. Carol pulled alongside us, and now I could see her plainly. Her face contorted into something I couldn't identify. She was attempting to force us off the road. Her SUV is heavier and more powerful than the cab. Carol repeatedly crashed into our passenger side, causing the driver to panic and swerve violently in an attempt to maintain control. Emma was screaming, and I was on the phone, dialing 911 and yelling our position and predicament to a dispatcher who kept telling me to calm down and repeat everything. Carol delivered one more strong smash and the cab spun out, whirling twice before going off the road into a small ditch. Despite the fact that we were wearing seatbelts, the impact flung us about the cabin, and my head hit the windshield hard enough to see stars. Carol's SUV came to a halt, and I saw her jump out, coming purposefully toward our damaged cab. The driver was sprawled over the wheel, stunned or unconscious, and Emma was weeping next to me. I grabbed her hand and kicked open the far side door, hauling her out into the drainage ditch that runs alongside the road. We fled into the thicket and darkness, with Carol shouting after us. Her voice carried across the calm night. "Girls, stop. I'm trying to protect you. The FBI is lying. Your father is lying. I just need to talk to you." However, her actions did not match her words. Did not match someone attempting to protect, rather than hurt. The drainage ditch led to a culvert beneath the road, and we crawled through it, arriving on the other side, muddy and scratched. Behind us, I heard sirens coming. The 911 call eventually yielded a response. Carol must have heard them too, since her ranting ceased and I heard her SUV engine start, tires squealing as she departed the scene. Police cars came with bright lights, and officers jumped out to investigate the crashed cab and search the area. We emerged from the tunnel, hands outstretched, yelling that we had phoned 911 and were the victims. One cop approached cautiously, hand on his pistol, as his partner checked the cab driver, who was slowly coming around. I explained everything quickly while Emma screamed against my shoulder. The officer was suspicious until I stated FBI Special Agent Megan Johnson's name and showed him the text from Brian. His demeanor altered and he radioed something coded to his dispatcher before instructing us to wait in his police car while he confirmed our account. 25 minutes later, black SUVs arrived with federal agents who displayed badges and escorted us away from the local police. Agent Johnson was a lady in her 40s with piercing eyes and a look that said she'd seen too much to be astonished by anything. She draped emergency blankets across both of us before guiding us into one of the trucks. "Your father is alive," she responded quickly, and I felt something in my chest relax. "He was attacked in his hotel room tonight, but he fought off his assailant and fled. He is in protective custody and is also looking for you. Your mother's colleagues failed to kill him, so they turned their attention to you girls, most likely expecting to use you as leverage to keep your father from testifying." Emma was weeping harder now, relieved but also exhausted and traumatized. "Where's Carol? Did you arrest her?" Agent Johnson said harshly. "She left the scene before local officers could apprehend her. We have warrants out for attempted murder, assault, fraud, and about a dozen other charges. Every law enforcement agency in the state is looking for her, but she's proven to be very good at disappearing when she wants to." The drive to the FBI field office was a blur of exhaustion and shock. They processed us through security and collected our statements individually, documenting the entire night and Carol's actions. Someone gave us food, coffee, and blankets, treating us like fragile objects that may shatter with severe touch. Brian came around morning, looking as bad as I'd ever seen him. His face was damaged, his left arm in a sling, and he moved as if his ribs pained. But when he spotted us in the conference room, he burst into tears and pulled both of us into a protective embrace, causing Emma to sob into his chest. "I'm so sorry," he repeatedly said. "I'm so sorry I put you through this. I thought I could handle it quietly. I thought I could protect you." Over the following several hours, the complete tale unfolded. Carol had been conducting a real estate fraud scam for the past 6 years, utilizing her license to enable money laundering for a criminal organization. Brian found proof of it by accident. Found messages indicating that she was not just participating, but also key to the operation. He had approached the FBI rather than confronting her directly. Had spent 4 months surreptitiously gathering evidence while pretending everything was fine. Carol's acquaintances learnt of his participation tonight, thanks to a breach in the inquiry. They'd dispatched personnel to his hotel to eliminate the witness issue, but Brian was neurotic enough to have extra locks in place for just this case. He fought them off and fled, but not before sending us the warning text, knowing that if they came for him, they'd come for us next. "She never intended to hurt you directly," Brian said, his voice firm. "She wanted to grab you before the FBI could use you as collateral to force me not to testify. But when you ran, when you didn't come home, she panicked. The woman who chased you tonight wasn't your mother protecting her kids. She was a criminal protecting her operation by any means necessary." The trial occurred 9 months later. Carol was apprehended at the Canadian border while attempting to leave with fraudulent documents and a large sum of money. Brian and the FBI had accumulated overwhelming evidence, detailing years of fraud and money laundering totaling millions of dollars. Carol was sentenced to 30 years in prison for fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, and other charges that took the prosecution 12 minutes to recite. She never looked at us during the trial, expressed regret, or attempted to explain. The lady in the defendant's chair was a stranger with my mother's face, and I realized for the first time that we'd been living with a criminal our entire lives, unaware of it. Brian testified for 2 days, his voice firm despite apparent emotional agony, telling how he fell in love with someone who didn't actually exist and had been playing a part the entire time. Emma and I are currently living with Brian in a new state under partial witness protection. Not a complete move and name change, but enough security to sleep without nightmares of SUVs hitting our car. We're both in treatment, working through the betrayal and suffering, and learning to trust again after having our core safety net of family destroyed. Brian is rebuilding his consulting firm and attempting to forgive himself for not recognizing the warning signs sooner, exposing us to danger he had no idea existed.